Hey everyone, I'm Ermysenigma. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Up for analysis today is Shannara's pet. This noble creature always sides with the weak, as her Master General Shannara wants her to. Shannara's pet relies on her speed to move fast around the battlefield. Her mythical horn allows her to cast blessings upon her allies. And so here we have Shannara's pet. It is a unicorn. Design wise, I absolutely love this monster. I think it's one of the better designs in the whole entire game. And I've said this in the past, when Social Point makes a monster with a pretty good design, the monster tends to be not so good. Let's see if the same is true for Shannara's pets. And before analyzing the stats, you should know that as of the time recording this video, there are a total of 31 legendary magic monsters. So General Shannara's pet will be compared to the other 30 legendary magic monsters. So Shannara's pet has a power of 3,267, which actually puts her in 15th place. So she's not necessarily the strongest, she's not the weakest, but she's somewhere in the middle. Her life, on the other hand, 22,921. This is actually the lowest life for all magic monsters. So unfortunately, she's not that strong, and she also has the weakest life. She's not tanky whatsoever. But on the upside, her speed is 3,476, which is one of the fastest speeds in the whole entire game. And in terms of magic monsters, this actually puts her tied for 4th place along with Galante. So overall, her power is mediocre, her life is absolutely terrible, and her speed is amazing. And as for his trait, she is tough. Generals are tough. All status effects have a 35% less accuracy against this target. Now while this is an amazing trait to have, 35% chance to not get immobilized by anything, considering she is a magic monster, I think Shannara's pet would have been better off if she was immune to possession. But anyways, let's move on to skills. For her default skills, we have Hoof Hits and Shannara Energy, and her ultimate skill is Mystical Charge. All targets healed by 100%, removes all negative status effects from allies. So Shannara's pet ultimate is actually a team skill that heals all of your allies' health all the way. So let's say all of your monsters had 1 HP, it would go back to 100%, and on top of that, it also removes any negative effects they may have. Whether they're possessed, stunned, whether they have some sort of DOT, everything is gone. So it's basically like all of your monsters have a new fresh start. Now definitely the effect of this ultimate skill is amazing. However, the way the game is designed, I really can't say that supportive ultimates are that great. Normally what we look for in an ultimate skill is a really powerful skill that wipes out all of the enemy monsters, or a powerful skill in terms of deny. So something that like removes stamina, or stuns, or freezes, or possesses. So yes, while Mystical Charge, 100% heal and remove debuffs is amazing, considering how the game is actually designed, I would have to say it's really not that great of a skill. And in skills group 1, we have Horse Stop, Astral Scramble, and Magic Anagram. None of these skills are worth mentioning, so let's move on to skills group 2. And so we start things off with Dazing Stomp. Deals moderate special damage, may daze target. This skill targets a single enemy, dealing 40 damage, costs 28 stamina, and it has no cooldown. So a no cooldown 40 damage special base skill that also dazes. This skill is actually not that bad, but at the same time it's also not really fantastic. I don't think this skill is worth running. Anagram Disruption deals low magic damage to all enemies, may apply damage reduction to all targets, requires cooldown. So this is an AoE skill that deals 30 damage to all of the enemy monsters. It costs 35 stamina and it only has a 2-turn cooldown. And this also gives all of the enemy monsters damage reduction. And damage reduction basically reduces the enemy's damage output by 25%. And damage reduction is also a really good way to remove buffs from the enemy. Power buffs I mean. So for example, if the enemy has double damage, if you apply damage reduction, that actually gets rid of double damage. Still, I would have to say Anagram Disruption is not really that great of a skill. Next up is Astral Invasion. Deals moderate magic damage, may possess target, applies stamina leak to target, requires cooldown. Astral Invasion deals 40 damage to single enemy, it costs 31 stamina, and it only has a 1-turn cooldown. A 1-turn cooldown for a skill that can possess and give stamina leak, that's actually pretty amazing, especially in the context of Team War. If you think of a Team War involving magic, some other element, and something like common, you don't really need a monster that has AoE possession, because 1, the enemy magic monster will most likely be immune to possession, and 2, the enemy common monster, it doesn't really matter if you possess it. If your possession skill also deals damage, you'll probably kill the common, and even if it doesn't kill the common, it doesn't really do you any good to possess the enemy common monster. So in that scenario, you're really only possessing the enemy attacker, the other element, in which case Astral Invasion is a way better way of possessing the enemy attacker. And on top of the enemy attacker being possessed, it's also going to have stamina leak. The monster is going to use its own stamina to attack its team, and on the following turn it's going to be stamina leaked again, so it's going to lose another 15%. Astral Invasion is definitely a must-have skill for Shannara's pets. And moving on to skills group 3, we have Dizzy Stomp. Deals moderate special damage, may daze target, may apply damage reduction to target, requires cooldown. So Dizzy Stomp targets a single enemy, dealing 45 damage. This also costs 31 stamina and it has a 1-turn cooldown. And this skill applies both daze and damage reduction. Now I'm actually a big fan of this just because it really works against the enemy attacker. So daze reduces the enemy's monster's accuracy by 25% and it reduces their damage output by 25%. And damage reduction, like I already mentioned, reduces the enemy's damage output by 25%. So this skill alone reduces the enemy's damage output by 50% and their accuracy by 25%. So even if the enemy monster does land a hit on you, they're going to be dealing 50% less damage. That is pretty powerful, especially when you consider that in Team Wars, it's always 2 elements versus 2 elements. So for example, if it was a Team Wars involving fire and magic, then the enemy would also have fire and magic, you'd have fire and magic, and if that enemy fire monster, if you land Dizzy Stomp and that fire monster attacks your fire monster, if the enemy fire monster uses a fire attack against your fire monster, that's already half damage, and then Dizzy Stomp, that's another half damage, if it even lands thanks to Daze. So personally, I really like this skill, especially because you can also combo it really well with Astral Invasion. So on turn 1, you use Astral Invasion on the enemy attacker, you take control of them, the attacker attacks his own teammate, and then on the following turn you use Dizzy Stomp, so even though the attacker is going to attack you, they're going to be really weak. So it goes without saying, Dizzy Stomp is another skill you definitely want to run. Next up is Mystic Thrust. This skill deals heavy magic damage, loses all negative status effects, requires cooldown. So Mystic Thrust deals 50 damage to a single enemy monster, it costs 28 stamina, and it has a 2-turn cooldown. And so I guess Mystic Thrust can best be useful to get rid of DOTs, because you can't use this skill to get rid of stun, freeze, or possession. You know, if you use Mystic Thrust when you're possessed, you're still going to attack your own team, and then I guess you'll get rid of possession, but then if you would have ended your turn, you would have gotten rid of possession anyways. Well, I guess Mystic Thrust could help if the enemy monster was to 2-turn possession your Shannara's pets, but still you will be attacking yourself or your teammates on that first attack, and then you'll get rid of the 2-turn possession. So I guess in that case it could help, but keep in mind you also have tough, so that only will happen 65% of the time. But anyways, because this skill does help to remove DLTs, I would say it is a skill worth running. And last but not least is Astral Blessing. Adds stamina regeneration to all allies, may give regeneration to all allies, requires cooldown. This skill is a team skill that costs 30 stamina, has a 3-turn cooldown, and this skill gives your team energy regeneration and life regeneration. So for the next 3 turns, your teammates will be recovering 20% of their stamina and their life. So this is certainly a fantastic supporting skill, and one you definitely want to run. So anyways, the skills I recommend for Shannara's pet are Astral Invasion, Dizzy Stomp, Astral Blessing, and Mystic Thrust. And you've probably seen it by now, this monster is really more of a supportive monster than it is a deny monster or an attacker. This monster can possess and give stamina leak, it can also make the enemy attacker really weak thanks to daze and damage reduction, it can help your whole entire team recover their stamina and their life, and whatever negative effects Shannara's pet may have, it can remove them thanks to Mystic Thrust. Now, the thing about Shannara's pet being a supportive monster is that this game really doesn't favor supportive monsters. The way Team Wars is set up, you normally want a deny monster and an attacker, and then the rarity, it really depends on that rarity. For example, if it's something like common, uncommon, rare, you really just need the deny and the attacker. The deny immobilizes the enemy monsters, and then your attacker does the rest. There really isn't room for a supportive monster in Team Wars. Even if it's like magic, some other element, and legendary, when we have that legendary slot open for the rarity, there's top tier monsters that players tend to use. Monsters like Krampus, who's really fast and can deny, monsters like Voltic, who can attack endlessly and just win you the game. So unfortunately, it's kind of hard to see a place for Shannara's pet in terms of Team Wars, and I'd have to say that Shannara's pet's main problem is due to the trait Tough. This monster really would have needed immune to possession, because yes, Shannara's pet may be one of the fastest magic monsters, the fact is she can still be possessed, and you can't possess the enemy magic monster most likely. A lot of people tend to run Egg Eater on defense, and that enemy Egg Eater is immune to possession, so you can't use Astral Invasion against it, you can only use it against the attacker, which means even if Shannara's pet goes first, when it's Egg Eater's turn, it can do its AoE possession and Shannara's pet may get hit. So if that was to happen, that'd be really unfortunate. Now that's not to say she isn't completely useless, as I mentioned, her skills, they really do help, at least for possessing the enemy attacker, and for making the attacker extremely weak. There may be some magic wars where she may be usable, you just have to be on the lookout for them, but overall I really don't think Shannara's pet should be your go-to magic war monster. However, on a positive note, I would have to say that Shannara's pet is a pretty good monster for survival dungeon, especially thanks to Astral Blessing. Energy and life regeneration is extremely useful for survival dungeon, as is Dizzy Stomp if you don't want to take a lot of damage from some of the enemy attackers, and as is Astral Invasion so you can possess one of the enemy monsters and use them against their own team. Unfortunately, in survival dungeon, you can run your deny monster, you can run your attacker, and you can run Shannara's pet, your supportive monster. So now all that's left to decide is what kind of runes you want to put on this monster. If you actually want to try to utilize this monster in Team Wars, I'd recommend giving this monster all speed runes and just maximize on that speed. Again, I really don't recommend Shannara's pet for Team Wars, but if you want to try it, go ahead and do so. If you want to use Shannara's pet for something like survival dungeon, I'd recommend giving this monster 1 life rune, or maybe like 2 team life runes, and then 1 speed rune. You want Shannara's pet to go before your attacker, because then you'd be able to utilize Astral Blessing so your attacker would get more stamina and life regeneration. I mean, honestly, you can also give this monster 3 speed runes for survival dungeon, because then both your deny monster and your attacker can benefit from Astral Blessing. Both your deny monster and your attacker would get life regeneration and energy regeneration every single time. And with that being said, that is going to conclude my analysis on Shannara's pets. Please let me know what you thought about the analysis, and please let me know what you think about this monster. Do you think I missed anything about this monster? Do you think this monster is way better than I gave it credit for? If so, please let me know in the comments below. And like always, also be sure to let me know what monster you want to see analyzed next. And like always, remember to dream big and pursue your passions.